So I thought today I'd do something a little different. I, I'm going to talk about the making of a homegrown Buddha. So, first thing is, it sounds pretentious to refer to, for instance, to yourself as a Buddha, but uh, it's it's not an unusual thing to recognize that there is such a thing as a true nature, a Buddha nature. And the problem that people face is being able to see their true nature. So it's as if you're looking through a lens that's fogged. The lens, of course, in this case is your mind, and your mind is fogged or the lens is fogged. And if you were to clear away the fog, you would realize your true nature of being, or your Buddha nature, or of being a Buddha. Uh, and the idea of a Buddha being homegrown, well, that kind of flies in the face of, the standard sort of protocols for enlightenment, where you have to have a teacher and you have to be a monk and all those kinds of things. Uh, it, it, Having a teacher is a real, certainly an important or good thing to have if you're struggling, to learn how to meditate and those kinds of things. You want to know where you're at in your meditation. It'd be very useful to have a teacher. But uh, a lot of folks don't have a teacher within any kind of a reasonable proximity to where they live. And so they have to learn how to be their own teacher, in effect, or they have to become homegrown. As my book, that's by the way the name of my book, Homegrown Buddha. So let me tell you a little bit. So really what I want to talk about today is the story of my own meditation practice. So my meditation practice really, for all intents and purposes, began when I was an undergraduate at Michigan State. You had a choice then at Michigan State either to take 2 years of a foreign language, I wasn't very good at that kind of stuff, or you could take a lot of science courses and foreign study courses. So I was a psychology major, and foreign study courses were things like Eastern religions, Eastern philosophy. There was a whole long list of courses, Hinduism, things that had to do with religion and that could qualify as a foreign study class. And I took all of the ones on Eastern religion, everything I could find. In the end, I got more credits in that than I did in my major, psychology. So that's where it sort of all began. And the result of that is I developed a belief system. And the belief system, I carried that belief system throughout my life. And as time passed over the years, I became what I would refer to as a book Buddhist. In other words, every time I went into a bookstore and I saw a book on Buddhism, I bought it and I read it. And the result is I have read, or over the years have read, tremendous number of books on Buddhism, Eastern religion, Taoism, Hinduism, and so you might say I'm really well read. Uh, okay, so also, though, included in all that belief system was the idea that part of being a Buddhist was that you should meditate. Or, that was strongly implied in most of the Buddha's teachings and a lot of the teachings of Buddhist interpreters, or, interpreters of the Buddhist sutras and things like that. And so I tried over the years, on numerous occasions, I tried to develop and sustain a meditation practice. And I was never really successful. For a wide variety of reasons, I would fall off and eventually give up, and meditation would go the way of a great many things in life, gone. Uh, that was until, and there's a really pretty long gap here. That was until I got to be about 50 years old, and I had to go to graduate school to keep up my my work situation. And while I was in graduate school, I had to write a master's thesis. And so I couldn't think of anything worthwhile that I cared to write a thesis on until I thought, well, why is it so hard for me to develop and sustain a meditation practice? So that's what I decided to write my thesis on. And I collected together a group of participants, included myself in those participants. It was a qualitative study, so being a participant in your own study is pretty much a standard. Uh, and what I did was is I had people meditate for 8 weeks, and during that time they kept records. They, answered survey questions. They wrote biographical sketches of their experiences meditating. They, uh, you know, I did extensive interviewing. And I did all of this and collected and collated all that information, and finally it ended up being my master's thesis. When it was all over, I kept on going. I kept doing meditation as if it were a research project. In fact, I kept a whiteboard next to where I meditated, and every time after my meditation practice was over, I kept notes on the whiteboard about what occurred, and you know, very, what I would call carefully crafted note-taking process. Eventually, I took my master's thesis and the notes that I took, uh, you know, uh, along the way, and they turned into the book Homegrown Buddha, which is a record of my meditation practice and the techniques I used up into up into a time, an age of about 55, 60. And then eventually, yoga was added on to the practice, and I started to practice asanas, and that led to a meditation practice. So, okay, the in undergraduate school, I wrote a poem, and that poem has stuck with me all these years. And so I've, what do you call, modified the poem to fit what I'm talking about today. So the poem goes, a homegrown Buddha grows like a living organism, roots in the stony soil of the earth, leaves in the infinite expanses of eternity. So uh, what I take that to mean now is, and it's something that has grown as a part of my awareness and my practice, is that the idea that Buddhism is a belief system, and being a book Buddhist is, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not putting it down or anything like that. A lot of people, I think, move from that to other things or actually stay with that. And there's nothing, as I said, there's nothing wrong with that. But I separated the two ideas, Buddhism as a belief system and Buddhism as a practice. At some point, I began to see that my practice was my Buddhism, and that the belief system sort of, hung around in the background and played some part, no escape from your own mind. And that part began to get began to diminish as my practice began to grow. My practice, which I've discussed in previous videos, really was based on sitting, meditation on an open mind, on a mind free of judgment, meditation on an objectless space, uh, focusing on a place where an object or a thought or a sensation can occur, uh, and but potentially could occur, but isn't actually occurring right now. So you might call it an open space. And when something does occur in that space, taking note of that fact and then releasing that. So that was part of the strategy, part of the way that I started to practice meditation. And the other part was introspective analysis, beginning to try and really, for all intents and purposes, trying to figure out what or who or where I am. And introspective analysis helps you begin to sort of carve away or wipe off the lens, so you begin to get glimpses of what's possible, what can be seen through the lens when it's cleared. We're stuck looking through the lens because the lens is our own mind. But the more we can clear the lens, the more we begin to see what we really are, what our true nature is, and the more we become aware of our Buddha nature, our Buddha mind, which is bigger, you might say, than the small mind of everyday life, the mind that's the roots growing into the stony soil of the earth. And that's in comparison to the mind that opens up to the infinite expanses of eternity. So, uh, what I want to encourage here, and I'm not trying to sell this book. I mean, obviously you could buy it. It's available on Amazon as a Kindle book and as a paperback. Uh, but what I'm trying to say is that a whole long lifetime of my experiences as a meditator are contained in that book in such a way that you can begin to use that book to assist you in your homegrown Buddhahood, in your homegrown meditation practice. And I encourage you to acquire the book, however you might do it. If you really feel a strong desire to have the book, but you don't really have, say, the wherewithal, the resources to get it, then message me, and I'll send you the book. I won't even charge you for it. I'll send you the book free of charge. So that's how I got to the place I'm at. Uh, how has the place I'm at affected the life I live? Slowly but surely, my first of all, my belief system about Buddhism, it remains there. It's still there. It still sort of hovers, but I'm not attached to it. I can let any aspect of it go, and release myself or free myself from it. And what I've noticed is the beginning of a melting away of strong belief systems in general. And this is a time where it would be very useful to realize where your belief systems have placed you and what kinds of suffering they're causing you to experience. Uh, Part of this idea of a homegrown Buddha, well, just to, sort of an add-on here, is very often people who are practicing meditation and trying to achieve something, you might say, achieve a goal. Uh, you know, uh, the belief is, and the belief is sustained in in the Buddhist writings, is that this is an individual struggle and that you will get to where you're going on your own steam, based on your own effort. Uh, Later along the way, some of those ideas have kind of morphed into another idea that fits better with the Buddha's most basic, statement about individualism. The Buddha basically said that there is no unique individual nature, that things, beings, objects aren't, can't have an individual nature. And if there is no individual nature, there's nothing to be enlightened. There's nobody to become enlightened. Uh, and so another belief system has sort of been layered on top of the older Buddhist belief systems, and that's that enlightenment or achieving Buddha nature, or beginning to see beyond the small mind, is not something that's done by an individual, since there are no individuals. It's instead something that is done by everything and everybody all the time, all at once. In other words, when we get to the other side, we won't be alone. Everybody will come along with us. And, our job in the meantime is to do everything in our power to make sure that everybody is getting as much as you can help them with, to help them come along and get to the other side, and the other side being, of course, enlightenment. In other words, doing what you need to do in order to help people get to the other side. That may be just giving them a meal so that they have enough energy to sustain, a meditation practice, or teaching other people, or things like that. Uh, so, uh, you know, we're all going to achieve enlightenment all at once, all together, since there is no difference, no separation, no individualism, no unique separate self. We're going to all suddenly become aware all at once of our true nature. So I just thought I'd share those ideas with you, and please uh, check out this this video. Namaste.